So, in our Follow the AI Money series, we kept walking up the chain and landing on the same bottleneck: memory, the high bandwidth memory that feeds the AI chips. And the punchline was, when AI demand outruns supply, the memory makers can't just flip a switch. They have to build.
And that's the door we're walking through today. Because the moment Micron, Samsung, and SK Hynix are forced to build, to pour hundreds of billions into new fabs, a very simple question appears: who sells them the gear to do it? In the old gold rush line, memory is the shovel. So today, we're hunting for the pick and shovel of the pick and shovel.
It's the layer one rung higher than the bottleneck, the companies that get paid when the world is forced to build more memory. This is the overview, the map of that layer, why it matters, and the honest catch. Quick disclaimer first.
First, a quick and honest word. Everything you're about to hear is really just the two of us thinking out loud. Personal market commentary, made for learning and for fun. It isn't investment advice, and it isn't a recommendation.
And when we talk about a specific company, it's only ever to make a bigger idea click, never a nudge to buy or to sell. So take it as a starting point for your own curiosity. Do your own research and make the call that's right for you.
Fast and simple. This is for education and entertainment only, not investment advice. Every company we name is a public example to illustrate the idea, never a recommendation. We don't give buy or sell calls, and we don't do price targets. Please always do your own research.
Let's set the logic, because it's the whole series in a sentence. The classic picks and shovels idea says, in a gold rush, don't pan for gold, sell the shovels. In AI, the shovels turned out to be the chips, and then, more specifically, the memory.
But here's the move. The person who sold shovels in 1849 still had to buy their steel and their tooling from someone. That supplier never had to find a single nugget. They got paid no matter which miner struck it rich. So if memory is now the shovel, we want the company that equips the shovel factory, a layer removed from who wins the chip war, as long as everyone has to keep building. And the scale of everyone has to keep building right now is genuinely staggering. Korea alone is reportedly steering something like $1.3 trillion into chips over roughly a decade. Within that, Samsung and SK Hynix are said to be putting on the order of $500 billion toward 4 new memory fabs. And Micron is ramping tens of billions in the US.
And the key word is forced. This isn't optional. Build it if we feel like it CapEx. The AI demand is pulling it. When a supplier is compelled to add capacity to keep its biggest customers, that spending gets committed, and it gets committed years in advance, which is exactly the visibility the equipment makers love.
And we got a loud confirmation of that just this week. A major bank turned outright constructive on a memory supercycle, arguing AI demand runs ahead of supply into 2027, and the equipment makers are reporting that their customers, the memory giants, are extending their rolling forecasts further out. That's the tell. When customers commit further into the future, the suppliers can see the revenue coming. We're reporting that as a notable data point, by the way, not endorsing the call.
So why does must expand matter so much for this layer? Because building a memory fab isn't like adding a shift. It's a multi-year, tens of billions construction project, and the bulk of that budget is equipment, the machines that deposit, etch, polish, and test the wafers.
And those machines come from a tiny handful of companies. So a decision in a Samsung boardroom to double output is, in plain terms, a future purchase order for the equipment makers. The fab is the customer's project. The tools are someone else's revenue. Follow the money one rung up, and it lands on a very short list. Now here's the part that makes this more than just more fabs, more tools. It's super linear. A bit of high bandwidth memory takes something like 3 times the wafer and process intensity of plain old commodity memory. And the equipment intensity per bit keeps rising. More deposition steps, more etch steps, the new stacking techniques.
So doubling memory output doesn't double the equipment bill. It does something more than double it. Every harder generation of memory needs more machines per wafer and more advanced ones. That's the tailwind underneath this whole layer. The chips getting harder is, by itself, growth for the people who make the tools.
And it compounds with the logic side, too. The move to the newest transistor designs, gate-all-around, backside power delivery, also piles on steps and tools per wafer, completely independent of memory. So the equipment makers have two engines firing at once, the memory build and the logic transition. Two separate waves, washing up on the same short list of beneficiaries.
Okay, so who are these people? And here's the first surprise. It's not one company, it's a stack of sublayers. When you actually open up a memory fab's bill of materials, the enablers sort into about 8 tiers, each one a different scarce input. Let's walk the map.
And as we go, keep one filter in mind, the same three-question screen from the main series. Is it a real bottleneck? Does the next generation of technology make it more needed or less? And can the customers keep paying for it? Hold those three questions against each layer. At the center sits the front-end equipment layer, what the industry calls WFE, wafer fab equipment. And it's dominated by just 5 companies. The Dutch firm ASML, which has an outright monopoly on the most advanced lithography, the light machines that print the patterns. Then Applied Materials and Lam Research, the American giants of deposition and etch. KLA, which owns process control, basically the yield police. And Tokyo Electron of Japan.
And the striking thing is how uncompetitive it is, in the healthy sense for them. No advanced fab on Earth can run without engaging most of those 5. That's collective pricing power. ASML and KLA are the most monopolistic, single products nobody can replace. Applied and Lam are a touch more cyclical, but they're the broadest and the deepest. Those last two are our first 2 deep dives.
And just to size it, the whole wafer equipment market is somewhere around $120 to $140 billion a year, growing mid-single digits. But the hottest tools are running 18 to 24-month lead times. They're effectively sold out. And when a machine is sold out 2 years deep, the company that makes it has a kind of pricing power and forward visibility that most industries can only dream about.
One rung over is advanced packaging, and specifically, the art of stacking the memory dies into a tower. High-bandwidth memory is literally chips glued on top of chips with thousands of microscopic connections. As the towers get taller, the bonding gets brutally hard.
And there's a technology shift happening right inside this layer, from an older thermo-compression bonding to a newer hybrid bonding. The names here are smaller and less famous. A Dutch company, BESE, that leads hybrid bonding. ASMPT, a Korean firm, Hanmi, that supplies SK Hynix. This is the HBM-specific choke point, and a place where the next architecture genuinely raises the bar.
And notice that's the second screening question passing in real time. The move to taller stacks and hybrid bonding doesn't threaten these specialists. It needs them more. The harder the memory tower, the more indispensable the bonding tool. It's a small, unfamiliar corner of the market with a moat that's actually widening as the technology gets harder, which is exactly the kind of corner this series is built to find.
Then there's test. And test is quietly one of the most interesting tiers because as you stack more dies into a memory tower, the amount of testing per part rises faster than almost anything else. You have to prove every layer works known good before it ships.
And one company, Advantest of Japan, sits near the center of memory and HBM test, close to a duopoly with Teradyne. It's a name most people have never heard, attached to a step that's growing faster than the chips themselves. Hold that one for later in the series. Below those sit the quieter tiers, and we'll just tour them quickly. Metrology and inspection, measuring and finding the defects with names like Onto and Camtech. Then process materials and consumables, the filters, the ultra-pure gases, the specialty chemicals that get used up with every single wafer. A company like Entegris lives here, and that recurring nature makes it less cyclical.
And below even that, the raw silicon wafers themselves. And remember, high bandwidth memory uses something like 3 times the wafer area. So the wafer makers like Shin-Etsu and Sumco feel the boom directly. And the substrates, the high-tech boards the chips sit on, where a single Japanese company, Ajinomoto, yes, the seasoning company, has a near monopoly on a critical insulating film. The deeper you dig, the stranger and more concentrated it gets. And at the very bottom, our favorite tier, the subsystems. The components inside the big machines, the vacuum systems, the precision power supplies, the gas flow controllers. Companies like MKS Instruments and Advanced Energy. If Applied and Lam are the pick and shovel of the pick and shovel, these are the pick and shovel of that.
Which tells you how deep this rabbit hole goes. Every layer has its own little oligopoly, its own scarce input, its own pricing power. The whole point of mapping it is that the durable profits often hide in these boring, unglamorous tiers, while the crowd argues about the flashy chatbot sitting on top of it all. So run the screen across the map. On the first question, real bottleneck, most of this layer passes. These are oligopolies with high market share, long lead times, and record margins. That's genuine pricing power, not a story.
On the second, does the next generation help or hurt? It mostly helps. Harder chips need more steps, more tools, more tests, more bonding. The technology shift is a tailwind, not a threat, for most of these names. The monopolies are clearest at lithography and process control. So the first two questions look strong across the board. It's the third question where the honesty comes in.
And it's worth saying why the first two are so strong, because it's striking. We're talking about lead times of a year or two, market shares of 50, 80, sometimes effectively 100% in a single critical step, and record gross margins. Those aren't story stocks. That's a structural toll booth on the whole industry, and the technology only deepens the toll. If the demand were somehow guaranteed forever, this would be one of the best businesses on earth.
Because the third question, can the customers keep paying, is the whole risk. This entire layer is a derivative of memory capex. It front-runs the wave, which is why it's printing records right now. But it's also the first to feel it if the wave breaks, if memory overbuilds into, say, 2027, or if China cuts its spending.
So the honest framing for the whole series is this. These are high-moat businesses on a cyclical demand base. They are wonderful on the upswing and unforgiving on the downswing. And a lot of them have already run very hard. One of the big tool makers is up something like 75% this year alone, trading at a rich multiple. So this is a layer to understand deeply, not a layer to assume only goes up. We'll keep that valuation honesty in every episode.
And there's a useful tell built into all of this, because the layer front runs the cycle, it can also warn about the cycle. If these enabler names keep leading while memory builds, the boom is intact. But if they start to roll over while the memory makers are still spending, that's often the earliest signal that the overbuild is coming. So we won't only analyze them as businesses, we'll read the group as a kind of barometer for the whole AI build.
So here's the plan. We're going to go company by company, inside out. The history, what they actually make, the moat, the memory leverage, the financials, and the bear case alongside the bull. Not a highlight reel, a real teardown.
We start with the two broadest, most memory-levered tool makers. Applied Materials, the house that touches nearly every chip, and Lam Research, the etch monopoly that's the purest memory lever of all. Then we'll work through process control, test, the bonding specialists, the materials, and the subsystems. Each one is a different answer to the same question.
So that's the map. When the world is forced to build more memory, the money flows up a rung to a stack of quiet, concentrated, high-margin enablers, each one a possible next bottleneck. The thing we'll keep testing across this series is simple. Which of these are durable bottlenecks, and which are just cyclical riders along for the AI build?
We don't predict. We test the theses as the evidence lands. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. Follow the working thesis, and tell us in the comments, which layer of this stack do you most want us to dig into? Next up, the anchor, Applied Materials. And that's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you, genuinely, for spending part of your day thinking this through with us.
The whole idea of this show is pretty simple. We hold a handful of theses about the world, and we test them out loud, together, a little more each day. No crystal balls, just curiosity, and a willingness to be wrong.
So, if that's your kind of thing, stick around for the next one, and tell us where we're getting it wrong. Honestly, the pushback is our favorite part.
Until next time, take care of yourself and keep asking good questions.